So just starting before that, I'm just going to talk with you about the image, the data which has been shared. And these data have been shared by many trusted sources. And here you can see that how the data that was initially in 90s, now it has dipped down to early 90s when we talk about the US medical students. And when we compare it with the international medical students, the percentage were earlier in 80s, but after the step 1 pass fail criteria, we can see that the percentage has fallen down to 70s, and it is predicted that in 2024 or 2025 we are expecting the passing rate to go down in 60s. Now the question arises that is the step 1 exam really that tough, or it is just the preparative strategy or the mistakes which have been made by IMG. Now see, I am a recent medical graduate. I gave my step 1 exam last year, that was in the 2023 section. So based on that, for me, I must have felt the exam very tough. Isn't it? You might be thinking that for me, in order to pass in 2023, the exam was pretty tough, right? But that's not the case. For me, passing step 1 exam, okay, it was a challenge. I have to agree on that. Okay, and to be very honest, the preparative strategy for me was tough. But once I was in the step 1 exam hall room, things started to become a bit easier for me because I had prepared the right way, because I had tried to avoid the common errors that students make. So, therefore, it is also up to you to decide that how you have to prepare for your step 1 exam. I mean, there is no necessary rule or a formulation that you have to particularly follow. And for how to prepare specifically for step 1, I'm going to make another video. But right now, I'm just going to talk about the mistakes that students make when they are preparing for their step 1 exam. No one makes mistakes deliberately. You have to understand this thing, that no one makes mistake. And every time when we say that a particular student has made an error, no student wants to deliberately fail his step exam. It is just the wrong influence, the wrong input that they are getting, because of which there is a wrong output. So it is as simple as that. Wrong critical thinking leads to wrong decisions. So you have to understand that what you have to do is completely personalized. It should be completely individualized. No two people have same minds. So if I am saying that A plus B is equal to C, it is not necessary that A plus B is equal to C. It can be, but it cannot be as well. So you have to think on your own that does really A plus B mean C or not. So this is how you have to understand, you have to prepare your strategy on your own. It is always good to take advices, but the final decision must be yours. So that is why your critical thinking is utmost important, not only for step exams, but for the whole USMLE journey. That is something which I have learned from my mentors, and that is something which I keep giving on to any person who asks or seeks my assistance. So now, point number 1 is timeline. Now, a lot of times we see videos, we see Instagram reels, and we see a caption which says that how to complete your step 1 exam inside 3 months, how to complete your step 1 exam in 8 weeks. So now all these things are good, these things are eye-catching. You might think that okay, I'm running short on time, so I can just watch this video, learn this idea, and then I can execute it perfectly. It sounds good, but in reality it doesn't. Why? Because now we have to go back to the basic that I was talking about earlier, that no two individuals have the same mind. You have to focus on what is right, what is suiting you the most, and then you have to plan accordingly. So Point number one is not realistic. You haven't formulated a timeline that is matching according to you. There are two individuals who are completely different. For individual number one, he might be able to finish hematology. Let's say, for an instance, he can complete it inside, let's say, 1 week. But for individual number two, he might not be able to complete it inside 2 to 3 weeks as well. So, what we can understand from it is that individual one has a higher rate of grasping power. He has better understanding of the concepts compared to the individual number two. So therefore, for individual one, his preparatory for hematology subject is much more faster compared to the individual number two. So therefore, if individual two thinks that I can complete hematology in 1 week, he might be able to do that, but he won't be able to execute his concept, his knowledge that he has grasped on it on the step in exam. So that is what is not realistic. And the second point is exactly what I've talked about, copied. Each individual is different. So you have to require a different timeline. It is very important. You have to understand it. For some people, it can take 6 months. For some people, it might take 8 months. For me personally, I took a whole 1 year because I was preparing for my step 1 exam during my internship year, where I had to work in hospital. The working hours were quite odd, so it was quite difficult for me to manage my studies during that time. So because of that, I had to take a whole 1 year for preparation. And then the third is the timeline is not well constructed. There are a lot of gaps, there are a lot of discrepancies when you see when you're preparing for your step 1 exam. You might think that, okay, I am very much tired, I need to take a break, let's say 3 to 4 days. No, you don't have time for that. You don't have to do that. You have to make your plan accordingly so that you could have enough rest time, enough time for your extracurricular activities, and therefore you have to build your timeline according to that. Timeline is very important. It should be individualized. I'm going to again emphasize on this point. It should be completely individualized. Then to the second point, that is inconsistency. Now, not following your schedule. You have made your schedule, but you are trying to break it again and again. Now, breaking your schedule is normal. There is no human being on this world who can follow his schedule consistently throughout the whole course. It is quite impossible to do that, frankly speaking. I haven't seen that any individual. I haven't even heard of such person who is so much consistent. So there are going to be times when you're going to break your schedule, but don't try to increase that frequency. Try to limit it down. Try to make your schedule so that there is less chances of you being inconsistent. Second, too much flexibility in your timetable. It is quite synonymous to the first statement that you are, some days you're studying, some days you're not studying, and some days you're studying very hard while some days you're not studying at all. So those kind of flexibility, you might think it is helping you, but in reality it is not. You have to be consistent throughout the whole journey. Third, lack of motivation. It happens to all, but if ignored, it starts to become a major issue. So, a phase of burnout, a phase of saturation, it comes in every person's life. But then again, if your timeline is well constructed, if you are consistent, not an ideal 100% consistent, but if you are, like, let's say 85 to 90% consistent, then things can work in your favor. And the last stage is procrastination. Scrolling over Instagram reels, seeing other people's success, all these things seems fascinating. Trust me, I've also done that. But then I've realized from my mistakes that all these things, they are letting you down. They are letting you down your scores, your chances of acing in step 1 exam, and all these things are not going to help you. Try to make your schedule in which you have enough time for social media, you have enough time for extracurricular activities like traveling, watching movie, or playing any sport. All those things you have to make time, but you have to understand that majority of your time should revolve around preparing for your step 1. Then the third thing, the mistake which occurs is resources. Some students, I've talked to them, they are using too many sources, whereas some students are using too less resources. They want to be as much cost effective as possible. Now you have to understand that USMLE is not a cheap journey. You have to spend where you have to spend. I'm going to be talking about it in another video where how you have to manage your expenses in USMLE journey and try to avoid spending unnecessary money on agencies and try to spend money on accessing valuable resources. So I'm going to be sharing that in a separate video, but here you have to understand that you have to use the gold standard resources that are being used by majority of the individuals. Now what are those resources? You already know that. Okay, by me sharing those resources, I'm not adding anything different. But what I have to tell you that you have to realize that all the resources which you see over the internet, which are being consistently shared by many influencers, you have to understand that those resources are extremely valuable. They are important. They are not too many, but you can't have a side way around. Okay, you have to follow the path. You can't take a shortcut in this preparation. Third mistake, they switch resources with time. Let's say I'm using UWorld and I'm very happy with it. But if I get unhappy while solving UWorld, or if I get bored, then someone tells me that, oh, Amboss is great. So I'm going to be switching over to Amboss. Now this is not going to help me. You have to be consistent with whatever resource you're using. I've seen people passing step 1 with UWorld. I've seen people passing step 1 with even using Amboss as the UWorld. And I've also seen people not passing their step 1 with using either of the resources. So you have to understand that switching resources with time is not going to help you. It is only going to make your preparation worse. So you have to understand that use the gold standard resources and try to stick on those resources. So that is why I'm saying this is a highlighter kind of point which I have mentioned over here, that stick to your basic resources. That's a number one fact which you have to follow. Okay, so till now what I have discussed is about following your correct timeline. Try to be as much consistent as possible and follow the basic resources. Then the fourth mistake which people make is about the test taking strategies. Switching over question banks is wrong, which I was just talking about previously. Try to stick to a single basic question bank. It can be UWorld, it can be Amboss. I'm not here. This video is also not sponsored by UWorld or Amboss, and I'm not favoring any one of those. Okay, I personally used UWorld because that is what I knew about. I believed that by using UWorld I can do that, but I'm equally confident that by using Amboss as well, you can pass easily your step 1 exam. So this is the first point. The second point is not learning from your mistakes. Now you have to understand, and that is why I have mentioned in the third point, that is using the wrong purpose over here. You have to use UWorld or Amboss or any other question bank. You have to use question bank for test taking purposes. It is not for learning purpose. If you have to learn something, you have to go through your first aid, or you have to go through your other resources. Okay, so you have already resources for your learning, but you have to test your knowledge in those question banks. Try to give a question bank that is timed, that is not showing you answers after each and every question. Do a block of 40 questions, sit for an hour, make a timer. Initially you are going to lag behind the time, but it's completely fine. You have to just understand, you have to make yourself oriented, because until and unless you are not sticking to your test time, you're not sticking to those environment where you have to quickly solve those questions, it is not going to help you. Okay, and after your questions you can see that what mistakes you had made. then you can learn from it. It is completely fine. But I've seen many students just using UWorld for learning purpose, like they are simultaneously reading first aid and solving UWorld. That is the wrong thing. First, read UWorld, understand UWorld, and once you are confident enough, then go and try solving your UWorld. I have done that, and I've seen many students done that, and they have done exceptionally well. So it is completely up to you, but that is the advice which I'm going to give to you. The fourth point here is that using too many NBMEs. Now, the concept of NBMEs are that they are going to orient you towards the exam questions that are going to be asked on your step 1 exam day. That is the only purpose of NBMEs. So if you are going to use the older version of NBMEs, those NBMEs were maybe designed for those tests or those step 1 exams that were conducted 4 or 5 years ago, or maybe beyond that. So those type of questions are not going to be tested in your current day scenario, and there might be one or two questions which they might test you with, but those questions are already included in your question banks, so there is no point in using older NBMEs. Try to do the latest 3 NBMEs only, and in those latest 3 also the latest 2 ones, because they are going to provide you with the idea of how the questions are going to be asked with you on those NBME day. So you have to understand that thing. Yeah, try to stick with only the latest NPMs and the latest free 120s only. Now the fifth point here is the mental health. I see students, they stress themselves too much when they are preparing, and because of that you have burnout, you have saturation, you have lack of consistency, you are procrastinating, and you are having unnecessary stress that whether I'm going to be able to do that or not. The other way around of this thing is that when you see a lot of influencer videos in how to do it in 8 weeks, in 6 months, or maybe in 2 months, you might question yourself that why am I not able to do that 2 months? Why am I not able to do that in 8 weeks when the other person is doing that? So again, you have to understand, you have to make yourself realize that not every individual is same. Some of them have a good grasping power, whereas some of them have a good memory, and some of them have a great concept. So you have to understand those things, that how to tackle with all those scenarios. Then the second point here is that reserving yourself to the same spot. Now if you're studying at the same table, at the same room again and again and again, you're going to make yourself burn out. You're going to make yourself bored out. Why? Because you're feeling that you are sitting around the same environment again and again, and that kind of makes your life kind of dull. So you try to move around different places, try to study at different places. Okay, maybe change your room, maybe change your place for some time around. That helps a lot. And the third point, which is the most important point, is that stop comparing yourself to influencers. I know that step 1 is pass and fail, but step 2 is still numeric. And I see a lot of people who get too much inferiority complex when they see other people scoring 270s, 260s, or maybe 280s. I've seen a couple of videos of people sharing that how they score 280 or 281, and all those things. You don't have to make yourself feel inferior, or you don't have to make yourself feel that, oh, if I'm not able to do that, am I out of the competition? The answer is no, because USMLE has now moved on from just your step scores. They need the overall package of how the applicant is. They want to see that how you are as a candidate. Are you a real candidate or not? And that is something which I have discussed in my previous video as well. So comparing yourself to influencers, make yourself inferior, and that adds to more stress. So these 3 points are something which you might feel is too little, but once you are in that state, these 3 points, they tend to become extremely large, and they become one of the major reasons why students are not able to ace in their step 1 exam. Now the sixth point is that the student becomes too ambitious. They think that, oh, I'm scoring extremely well in UWorld, I'm getting 70-80% or maybe more than that. I'm scoring extremely well in NPMEs, so I'm going to crush the step 1 exam. That is not a right approach. You have to be always humble, because there will be a question where you will be completely baffled, where you will be completely bamboozled, and you won't be able to answer that question. And that is something which that type of question often becomes the confidence killer. So you have to understand that. Don't be too overconfident. If you are preparing very well, if you are extremely strong in certain areas of preparation, use it as your ace. You use it as your trump card. Don't try to boast yourself with those scores or with those preparation. Second, neglecting test taking skills. Now, like I said before, you're only using UWorld for learning purpose, not for test taking purpose. So all those things, you might think that, oh, I'm scoring very well, but you haven't really tested yourself in the test taking scenario. And because of that, you tend to make mistakes over that time. Then the third point here is overlooking the weak areas. Now, everyone, each and every applicant has a certain weak spot where they are not very comfortable answering those questions. Okay, for me, it was biostatistics that I wasn't quite great at. So I knew that my biostatistics areas were weak, so I need to improve on that. My biochemistry was kind of okayish, so I knew that for me to improve on my biochemistry, I have to work on it more. Now I knew that my cardiology, my neurology was quite strong, so I knew that I need not to be too overconfident with it, because these topics are going to be heavily tested on step 1 exam, and there might be a question which I can become bamboozled with it. So to prevent myself from getting attacked by such confidence killer questions, I always used to consistently focus on those areas as well, but I was spending more time in preparing myself for biostatistics as well as biochemistry, because those were my weak spot. And fourth, underestimating the exam difficulty. Now, a lot of students think that earlier exam was of numeric, so it was holding an importance in terms of how well you are as a student, how well are you as a candidate. But now, since it's pass fail, people often overlook this exam and they are only focusing on step 2. Even when they are studying for step 1, they are worried about step 2. So that is something you don't have to do. You don't have to underestimate the exam. The exam difficulty is same as it was a couple of years back. The only thing that has changed is that how students are approaching towards it. In this today world scenario, people just want to prepare and they just want to get over with the steps as quickly as possible, and they also want the highest scores as much as possible. So you can't get two things. Okay, if you want good scores, you have to prepare more and you have to give yourself more time. If you don't want good scores, you just want average scores, then you can prepare with whatever strategy you like. But you have to understand that step 1 exam is as equal and as tough as step 2 and step 3. You have to understand those things. Then seventh is the support system. Now here we are coming out of the individual. We are not talking about the individual errors. Now we are talking about the surrounding environment. So the support systems, a lot of time people do lack. There is lack of motivation because there are not many friends who are preparing for step 1 or step 2. Second point, there is lack of guidance or mentorship. You can see over there, a lot of times they don't have guidance, they don't have mentorship. For me personally, I had no senior who was helping me in preparing for my step 1 exam, who was working as a mentor for me. I had no such luxury with me. But anyways, I was able to just get over with my step 1 exam, and then I seeked guidance for step 2, and therefore I was able to perform well in my step 2 exam. So you have to understand that all these things happen with everyone, but you have to understand and you have to try and seek those guidance and mentorship through online platforms or just reaching out to your seniors who have prepared or who are preparing for their exam. The third thing is lack of resource sharing. We often see that people are quite hideous when they are preparing for their exam. They don't want to reveal their study strategy and all those things. They don't want to share their notes, but those things are not right. If you are studying together, I've seen that you can learn much quicker, you can solve each other doubts much faster, and those things are quite important. So this way you are also able to get a feedback. So if you're getting a feedback, let's say your partner is saying that, hey, your biochemistry is quite strong, can you teach me biochemistry? And you can say, okay, my biostatistics is not strong, so can you teach me that? So this way you are teaching each other, and this way you are not only sharing your resources, but you are also taking feedbacks from each other that, hey, am I doing this right or not? And this way you're going to improve your scores, and it really helps a lot. I've seen those things. Then the eighth point here is the test anxiety. Now, if you are not having the correct test taking strategy, if you are not making yourself accustomed to those environment, it becomes a big issue. Okay, so now we have come out from the individual, we're talking about the environment. So we talked about the support system, we talked about the lack of mentorship. Now we are talking about the test anxiety, which is another thing. I see a lot of people who perform extremely well in their UWorld, who perform extremely well in their NPMEs, but then during the test day they get panicked. Because why? Because first of all, they are not familiar with the environment. They haven't made themselves accustomed to sitting in a quieter environment, having a headphones on their head, and then solving questions using timer. So all those things, they don't do that. The second most important thing is the exam time. We often get up late in the morning, we sleep late at night, and because of that our sleep schedule tends to get disturbed. So you have to understand that the exam is going to start at 8 a.m. So try to get up around 6:30, and based on where your test center is and when you're going to be waking up on your test day, and then you have to sit and you start giving your exam at 8 a.m. So you have to make yourself accustomed at 8 a.m. If you're going to be solving your questions during the evening time, it will be very difficult for you to get up because your mind is sleeping, your body is tired, and then you're going to be going that with a tired mindset to give your probably the most important exam of your whole life. So it becomes, things become a bit messy out there, and you become anxious over there. So because of that, you are unable to complete your blocks in time, and that is the error which a lot of students make when they're preparing for their exam. So now the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, it has been huge, especially for all those medical students who were in their med school time during the COVID-19 pandemic. So a lot of classes went online, and because of that they were unable to grasp those knowledge during those time of, let's say, between 2019, late 2019 to early 2021. So the whole 2020 was quite tough for all of us, for all the medical students as well. So that becomes the weak year of your medical school, and because of that you are unable to bridge the knowledge gap. So you have to understand, for me, when I was in my third year, at that time COVID-19 pandemic happened. So because of my third year, my main subjects of my third year were the ENT as well as the ophthalmology. So these two were my main subjects where I had to prepare for that, and because of which I feel like those two subjects were quite weak. So I was mentally prepared that I have to spend extra time on it because these are my weak areas. So you have to understand that if you are also having that same issue, you have to address that, and you have to take that in your consideration when you're preparing for your step 1 exam. And the last but not the least is the competition. There are more IMGs that are applying in the US residencies, which increase pressure to perform well on step 1. You don't want yourself to be categorized as a red flag applicant. where you have failed in your step 1 exam. I've seen a lot of applicants who have matched into the residency program even with a failed step 1, or maybe some of them had a failed step 1 and step 2 as well. So you have to understand that those people also match. So the basic concept here is that the step exams are important, but they are not that important. But you have to try and avoid those mistakes, or avoid putting pressure on your application when you are sending it out for your ERAS math cycle. And you have to understand that more IMGs are applying for the US residencies, so more applicants will be there who have performed well in their step 1, who have performed well in their step 2. So you need to be at par with them, and then based on the complete package, either they are going to be selected or either you are going to be selected. So you have to understand those things. The second point here is looking on how to outperform others versus working on yourself. You have to understand that you don't need to complete your step 1 in 8 weeks in order to impress someone. You have to focus on yourself. You don't have to perform extremely well in UWorld so that you could say to your colleagues or friends to show them how intelligent you are. You don't have to do that. You have to see that, okay, I'm doing well. You have to congratulate yourself. You have to pat yourself at your back, but then you have to realize that, okay, I am doing it well. Now, where is the room of improvement? If you're going to consistently make yourself better in each and every subject, then only you will be able to perform extremely well in step 1 exam. So these are the 10 mistakes which I avoided, and that made my step 1 exam extremely easier. I am not promoting any timeline which you should follow. I am not promoting any resources that you should follow. I am not even promoting that you have to always seek mentorship. You have to understand that there is a lot of strategies that can be followed by a lot of people, but you have to see that which strategy is making you the best applicant over there. So I hope you are able to understand all the important steps that I've discussed with you. These all steps are extremely important when you're preparing for your step 1 exam, and not only for your step 1 exam, you can even follow these steps for preparing for your step 2 as well. You have to understand that time and patience is extremely valuable when you are in your USMLE journey. There is no shortcuts for it. There is no quicker pathway of it. And you can understand that if you follow these simple steps, these steps are not something which are extremely too complex, or it has a lot of difficulty in learning. All these things are quite easy. If you follow these basic steps, you will be able to ace in your step 1 exam as well as in your step 2 exam as well. But this video was specifically for step 1 students, so just keep in mind when you're preparing yourself for your step 1 exam, and I wish you all the best. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me on my personal mail. I have mentioned down in the caption as well. And if you have any questions, feel to ask me in the comment section as well. So I hope if you like my video, just click on the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Thank you and have a great night.